Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa yang nakama. They are like agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has an undertone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history.
It's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
Hello, good morning and welcome to National Discourse. Of course, we are still committed to bringing you issues that concern us as Nigerians. And of course, on Friday, we saw the signage into law of the Constitutional Fourth Alteration Bill by President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, the legal implication of such bills are what we're going to discuss it. And of course, if we don't forget that tomorrow is June 12th, what are we looking at tomorrow? What are we looking at for tomorrow? Now, I have someone in the studio, a senior lawyer, who is here to do justice to these topics. But before then, we'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we're moving straight into what we have today. I still remain your host, Uche Uduma. See you then. Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa yang nakama. They are like agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has an undertone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history.
It's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
All right, we come back from that short break. And of course, I have Barrister Angel Kano with me in the studio. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For us to move forward into what we have at hand today, sir, the president just signed into law a bill passed by National Assembly talking about the Constitution Fourth Alteration Bill that has to do with financial autonomy to the state houses of assembly and state judiciary. Let's start with that first. Now, what is your take on that?
Okay,
is it right for us to sign such a bill into law, or is it overdue?
Well, I don't know what you mean by a bill being overdue. What I think is important is to have what has been signed into law operational, which is what I think is commendable. When we talk about financial autonomy of the State House of Assembly and the judiciary, we have to look at the implications and what effect that has been on our democracy all along. You can agree with me that state governors before now have been in control of state houses of assembly. And then what it means is that the governor determines who becomes what in their states. The governor determines who become even the speaker. And that is even why we'll be having crisis in some states, because you find that each time a speaker or a member or members of House of Assembly of any state disagrees with policy of the state governor, then the issue becomes, oh, he has to be impeached. What is the reason? Because all the while, the legislature, state legislature, will always go cap in hand for their funding. And you cannot be looking at somebody that's playing the piper and then you don't think he will detect the tone. So having signed this into law, it's going to strengthen our democracy in the first instance, because you can imagine where the National Assembly is not financially autonomous. You can agree with me that you wouldn't have had the kind of robust challenge issues that we are seeing in the National Assembly. The Senate President, the Speaker, cannot put down his feet and say, this is what I want to do, without reference to the President if they didn't have financial autonomy, for instance. And again, if the National Assembly didn't have financial autonomy, what happened last time in 2015 when the ruling party APC decided not to go with the Senate leadership of the Senate and the House of Representatives? That wouldn't have been the case, because it means the President would have or must have determined who becomes the Speaker of the Federal House of Representatives or the Senate President. But because they have this financial autonomy, they don't care. They're on their own. They take decision. The executive have no option than to, you can see, do with what they have as it is now. So going back to the states, this is going to help our democracy. It's going to make state House of Assembly to be more robust, because what we find currently is that you find in states where you even have majority of the opposition being in the state House of Assembly, but at the end, because the governor determines what happens, there will be no problem. Everybody will dance, because the governor will be the person that will determine when he's going to buy them a car, when their houses are going to be rented, and their furniture allowances and all those things are going to be paid to them. So you cannot fight somebody that you go back to sponsor you or to give you food. Let's put it that way. So with this now, what it means is that the state House of Assembly can now determine who becomes their speaker and stand by that. The members of each state House of Assembly can determine to say, Governor, what you have done or this your policy, we are not going to go by it. Then they'll stand by that. Not because the governor will threaten them. Okay, that member is not going with my policy. In that case, he has to be impeached, or in that case, he has to be punished. He'll be called and give him a warning. So that I think is commendable.
All right. Now, how does this affect the fact that, for example, the ruling party, that there's a leadership of a particular state? All right. Now, how does it affect the relationship between the head of the leadership of a party? For example, in other state, if APC is in governance, they're the ones ruling Abia State. Now, how does it affect the relationship between the governor and the members in the State House of Assembly, aside the financial independence?
No. You see, first of all, leadership of a party in a state resides with the governor. Governor is the leader of a party in any state. Now, being the leader of that party, mind you, that we are looking at a situation where you have the majority of the members of the House of Assembly of that state coming from a ruling party, for instance, yes, or where they will form the government, they will form the leadership of that House of Assembly. That's true. But again, you find that even though they are from the same party, there's no likelihood that they will always agree on policies by the governors. You will find currently that you hardly hear about oversight function of State House of Assembly, State House of Assembly threatening to impeach a governor, or State House of Assembly threatening to insist on a policy, or even calling for public hearing. It's not common in the states, because if you say you want to invite the public for a hearing, it means the budget you have to send to the state, to the governor for approval and probably to release the fund. But with this, they cannot determine when to and how to spend their money.
Okay.
So that is what it is. So that does not mean that they will have, there should be a relationship. It does not mean that they are going to be fighting because they have autonomy, financial autonomy. No. But what it means is that you can now find people or members of the State House of Assemblies saying, look, our constituents are not happy with certain policies or certain government principles that they want to execute in the state. Please don't do that. They can challenge the governor based on that. But that is not what we have currently.
These are the things that are not there, like you just said, the question I want to ask you. Now, before the passage of this bill, these things don't happen.
No, currently no. Currently no. That's why you find that State House of Assembly is just there, dormant. You know, they are not robust, they are not active. You can only hear about the State House of Assembly when they are talking about impeachment of a speaker, when they are fighting because the governor is not comfortable with the speaker, who probably have, you know, challenged his policy. Look, that happened in Kogi State recently. You can remember, I think that was the last we had in Kogi State and in Gombe State. You know, but the one in Gombe State was the minority fighting among themselves. But in Kogi State, you can find that, you remember that when the governor probably was not comfortable with the leadership of the house, so he had no option than to kind of cause crisis. What will he take? Call few members and tell them, look, please, I don't want this man, impeach this person. He determines who becomes the speaker or who is in charge of the house. But with this autonomy, the interaction in terms of funding is going to be reduced. That somebody will know, look, even if you don't give me, I'm on my right, their funding will come direct to the account. By the way, you know, we have a National Assembly Commission. I think we have something like that, which in fact means we are going to also have State House of Assembly Commission, something like that, where all the workers of the House of Assemblies will now be gathered, that their welfare will be taken care of because they now have their funding direct from the federal government. I think it's a very good development.
All right, now let's look at the judiciary. Now, for a long time, we know that on paper we have independence of the judiciary, which have been affected by things like this. Because you know that at the end of the day, you're going back to ask for money. So it means, I don't want to use the wrong words, all right? It also means that you take, you know, dictation or dictates, rather, let me use the word, from the governor. Because if you don't, probably your money will not come. Now, for us to have this, how will the executive and the judiciary in a state still be able to work in synergy? Do you think this move is going to affect anything?
Well, I don't think so, except that it's going to really, instead of affecting negatively, it's going to be going to affect it positively. Because I know that judiciary in the states, for them to get their funding from the state governors, it is not, that does not really give us the kind of independence that they really required. That's why you find in some states, you hear in state A, the judiciary is on strike because their salary has not been paid. Then state B, the judiciary is working because their salary has been paid. And you find in some states, I can mention if you say, like in Enugu State, when the former governor was there, I think the current governor is sustaining that as well, Sullivan. The judiciary was very robust and I can say happy. You know, he took their welfare package was wonderful. Then, but you go to other states where you find, I can tell you, let me not even mention the name of the state. In a state where the judiciary was in, they were in strike. They were on strike for over a year. You can imagine that, because the state governor will always tell them, we don't have money. So
at the point that the judicial arm of government goes on strike for like a year, what happens to all the things they're supposed to do? What happens to the judicial processes in the
everything is at standstill. Is that supposed to be the case? What it means is that if somebody is being arraigned, somebody is standing trial, or they need to be given bail for a minor offense, then that person has to be under detention as long as that strike lasts. I mean, you can tell the negative effect of that. So putting it together, you find that that will now help to stop some of those things, you know. So even if we have autonomy in local government, that is even going to help development. Because if you have autonomy in the State House of Assembly, in the judiciary, and in local government, I think that will help development very fast. Because with this, there will be no reason for any state to say, oh, we have not received our salary for 6 months. Oh, we paid 3 months ago. A magistrate will tell you, I received my last salary about 4 months ago. For Christ's sake, how do you expect that kind of person to perform effectively? How do you expect that person not to be tempted to take bribe? So these are things that are not supposed to be. But with this bill, with this law now, it means that the federal government is funding directly to the judiciary, where they can now take their money, determine the use of the money, and pay their workers as and when due. So it's also a welcome development, in my view.
Is this possible that we extend this to the federal level, where you have the Senate? Is it possible that the Senate gets to stand on their own?
No, they are already. The Senate.
Where does their funding come from?
No, from this federal government. They have their separate budget. The Senate already, their financial autonomy, you know, that's why you see that we are having the kind of issues we are having, they are having with the executive. You can imagine if they are not autonomous financially, what will have happened?
Okay, now the judiciary, apart from the financial autonomy, you're talking about the federal level.
Of course,
apart from the financial autonomy,
yes.
Would you say that the judiciary is truly independent? Still having in mind that the two positions, very critical in Nigeria, is still a political appointment. Would you say that the judiciary is still independent?
Well, that is
are we enjoying the independence?
Yes, I should think so, because I don't really have any reason to say in principle that the judiciary is not independent in Nigeria, so to speak. There could be one or two occasions where you have interference, but that is not really pronounced. You cannot say, at least in this dispensation, that the judiciary have been overly, the executive have overly taking over the work of the judiciary, or kind of trying to detect for the judiciary.
What about obeying certain judgments?
Yes, that
of
is
the court.
That is not being independent otherwise, but it's just that the executive is not obeying the order of court, which is very unfortunate, really.
Why do you think that is happening?
It depends on the person in charge, because we have an instance like the former NSA Dasuki that had been in detention. Court have made orders that he should be released on bail, and up to now he's still being detained. There is no condition, there's no reason why that should happen. So if the executive failed to obey the court order, that does not go to
what is the consequence? I mean, okay, at the point that the judiciary gives court orders and the executive, looks at it and say, no, we're not going to do this. Is there any option left?
What would they do? You see, there are procedures. You see, you are talking about the judiciary that has their own limitations. For instance, my duty is to give you this handbag. Then after giving you handbag, it's your duty to take it outside. Then if I hand it over to you and you decide not to take it outside, then I mean, I cannot go again except by other procedures to say, why did you disobey my order for not taking it back?
Why don't we have such procedures?
Well, the procedure is there. I mean, it's still there. But let me even ask you, in this Dasuki case, what is the procedure to commence contempt proceeding against the president, commence contempt proceeding against the attorney general? That is what is baffling me. But I know the lawyers that are handling that case. I think they know what to do. But because it is complete violation of human rights, it is a complete violation of human rights and a complete disobedience of court order, which is not supposed to be. Because if the court makes order and you choose the one you will obey and the one you will not obey, there are procedures. It means like Ojukwu and State Governor of Ojukwu and the Lagos State Governor, you cannot determine the one, you cannot be in contempt and continue.
You can't choose exactly
be in contempt and continue to expect the same court to do what you are asking the court to do for you. So there are instances, there are procedures which I believe the people that are handling that matter should know what to do. Because if I'm doing that, I probably will know think of procedure to follow, which I think they must have been doing. So it is not proper. It is not proper for the executive not to obey or disobey court order, especially when it has to do with human rights violation. I can tell you, we didn't have during Jonathan's regime, Jaradua regime, Obasanjo regime. You can think or remember about one or two instances where court orders are disobeyed. That is majorly maybe when you talk about judgment debt and stuff. But in issue of human rights violation, that was not as easy, as common as it is now. That's the truth.
Okay, and like you said, there's nothing the judiciary, can do
there is something they do, but that has to be kick-started by a process. That has to be kick-started by a process. That's what they do. They can how do you enforce a judgment of court? There are procedures. If you disobey a court order, there are procedures that should be followed. Like they have to serve. If you want to tell you, you start by serving somebody that is in disobedience of that court order. A procedure will start by what we call from 48, from 49. From 48 is the consequences of disobeying court order. From 49 is for you an order to come to court and say, why tell the court the reason why you should not be committed for contempt having disobeyed the court order. These are procedures that has to be followed. It's a legal procedure that has to be followed rightly for you to enforce judgment
now,
of
would you
court.
rather, you've been in the field as a senior lawyer and you've seen, like I was trying to link it back to, how will I put it, process. Now, you've been there. Do you sincerely think if the judiciary must be independent, that the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, should still remain a political appointment?
Okay,
do you think that has affected the judiciary in any way?
Good question. My personal view, that has also been an issue that has been in the public domain. My view, I will tell you, is that if you separate the office of Attorney General, which is merely a political office, and the office of Solicitor General, which is a civil service career position, then I think we will have a better judiciary than we have now. Because what it means is that the two now, as it is, are fused into one. Because the Attorney General is the head of the legal unit, if you think of the nation. He decides what happens. It affects the law and interpretation and understanding of the law. He determines what it is. Now, if the Attorney General is appointed by the President, for instance, and that Attorney General, for whatever reason, has sympathy for the person that has appointed him, which is normally the case, that will also indirectly affect his disposition in discharging of his duties. So it is, in my view, better to have this position. Let an Attorney General be an Attorney General. Let the normal legal issues be done by the Solicitor General, who is a career civil servant who you cannot even move.
Influence.
Yes.
Because he has nothing to lose.
Yes, you can't retire him because he has given you a contrary legal opinion. But you can remove an Attorney General who refused to do what you want to hear. That is the truth. Because if a president that wants his Attorney General to tell him what he wants to hear, and that Attorney General decides to do that, that's it. And if he refuses, the man will fire him. So I believe, in my view, that we should separate the two offices.
All right, now let's move on to Bill number 16, which is to ensure that where a vice president or a deputy governor succeeds a president or a governor, he can no more contest for that office more than once. Now, what is your thought on this legally? What's the legal implication? And do you think probably this law came up to spite some people?
I don't think so. I will tell you, I'm also commending that position because, that almost caused a lot of problem when the former head of state died while in the office. Now, the issue was because there was a lacuna, there was no known law to determine
who steps in.
Yes, what was the position of the vice president. And even when the vice president steps in, the Constitution has said, look, as a president, you cannot be president for more than 8 years, which is 2 tenures of for 4 years each. Now, if we leave it as it is, somebody steps in, that will cause serious problem. Even this one that APC is celebrating, as a party, that was part of the reason why the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, lost that 2015 election. Because at the time he completed the tenure of his predecessor, that is his Oga, if you like, then he ran a second election. He won, that making it 6 years. Am I right? Now, after 6 years, he said, look, I want to go again for 5 years, for 4 years. After all, my turn has now started to run.
Making it 10 years, if it had worked.
Yes. So people said, because of the nature of Nigeria, these geopolitical issues, where you think political offices are zoned, to various geopolitical zones, some say, look, you have done this and you cannot be there another 4 years. And fortunately, as you saw, unfortunately, some believe so much that he shouldn't go for another 4 years, making it 10 years. So that caused a lot of problem. So with this law now, I think there will be no issue of what will happen. Because if you finish your tenure, which means you'll be sworn in as a president, then you run another tenure for 4 years, you are sworn in as a president for 2 times. So you cannot be sworn in as president for 3 times. That's what I think is the implication. So I think that's okay.
Now, looking at our laws, we know that our laws are not retrospective. Let me use the word. Now, can this stop the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, from coming back again? This law, the bill have just been passed now, and then he ruled like 4 years ago. Now, does this law stop him from coming back?
No, because the law, we had that issue, that problem with the former governor of Kogi State, the late Abdul Abubakar. He was a governor before and came back and wanted to come back again. Now, with this law, you cannot take it back to the time Jonathan was president. So you cannot stop him, because the effective date of this law is now. So, okay. I mean, it's simple.
So if he wakes up tomorrow and wants to come back and
why not? Yes.
The law is free for him.
Yes, because that law wasn't there when he did that. Because the law will say the day they sign it, effective date of the law. So it cannot be from that day, except if they say, well, it is effective from so and so time, apart from currently.
All right, we'll be going back for a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the discussion. Please stay with us.
Welcome to National Discourse.
I hope you know
Current affairs.
Yes.
Must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa Nakama. They are like Agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has an undertone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history.
It's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When the Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background, and today we are here in TSTV, and that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse, weekdays on NCTV.
All right, welcome back from that short break. Of course, moving on, we've tried dealing with the constitutional fourth alteration, which the president, Muhammadu Buhari, has signed into law, which has become effective from Friday. That was last week. Now, moving on, I want to quickly look at June 12th. the implication of tomorrow. Of course, we saw the president signing or releasing some press statements talking about our new democracy day being June 12th every year, just for remembrance of 1993 election that saw MKO Abiola, or that declared him as a winner, or that we want to declare him as a winner now, whichever way. But June 12th is tomorrow. So let's have your take on it. And of course, we still have Barrister NJ Carlo in the house, who will help us do justice to it. And of course, let's look at all the implications of June 12th. Of course, not very far from us, which is tomorrow. So, sir.
Thank you.
We saw the president, releasing some press statement, trying to, or not trying to, actually replaced May 29th with June 12th. Now, what is your take on that?
I must say that the president never, I have not seen or read anywhere he said, look, let MKO Abiola won that election, or he's been declared the winner by this statement. No. What I think the president is showing is that, look, that election, as far as Nigeria is concerned, stands to be the
freest, fairest,
and fairest, then and the most peaceful election that we've ever had in Nigeria, and that in his view, that he don't know why, and don't think that that election should not be recognized as part of our history as a nation.
The question we've asked, all right, because after the press statement, we had so many reactions that trailed the press release. Now the question is, has been in power since 2015 to now. Why now? Why are we, why did we suddenly wake up to that recognition now?
I'm not a politician, but I tell you, how do you know? I'll tell you, politicians will always tell you, oh, looking at Mr. President body language will tell you what he intends to do. Now, if I go by that their belief and quotation, looking at his body language, before now, some group of people, young people, went to see Mr. President, and he said, oh, please, let Nigerians vote according to their conscience.
Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa Nakama. They are like Agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has an undertone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history,
it's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When the Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
We see beyond the news. We are concerned about how it affects you, bringing updates on the economy, government and politics, sports and so much more. We are committed to informing, educating and entertaining you. We are NCTV, Nigeria Central Television. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. NCTV, strictly Nigeria. We see beyond the news. We are concerned about how it affects you, bringing updates on the economy, government and politics, sports and so much more. We are committed to informing, educating and entertaining you. We are NCTV, Nigeria Central Television. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube. NCTV, strictly Nigeria.
Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa yang nakama. They are like agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has an undertone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history.
It's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
All right, welcome back from that short break, of course, a necessary short break. Sir, before we went for that break, you were talking about your opinion about tomorrow, of course, the June 12th. And I remember I asked if it has taken this dispensation, this long time, to declare this, if there's any political intent. I think that's the question I asked before we went to the break.
Yeah, I think people continue to complain about the timing. I will always say it's better to start than never starting at all. My own view about this June 12th is not because of the benefit, or the people, like people are saying the president will likely gain from the people from the southwest. But as I was explaining, the body language, the president's body language, he told people that came to see him before the announcement about June 12th, that look, he want Nigerians to vote for any person of their choice. After that, he declared June 12th as a democracy day, recognizing the election of June 12th in 1993. In my understanding is that let the president go further to maintain his integrity and the integrity of democracy in this country, because that's what it means. For us to have June 12th and really celebrate June 12th as a democracy day is for our leaders like the current president to also have it in mind that election in Nigeria or democracy in Nigeria should no longer be truncated by not barrel of gun alone, not by announcing cancellation of election, not by annulling election, but by also not rigging election. Let it be a package. Let it be that he's giving us a promise that
next year
in 2019,
it's going to be free and
that
fair.
is going to be free and fair. That the mandate of Nigerians will be respected. That nobody, that even if he is voted out of the office, that he should gladly hand over. By the way, if you look at the history of the way it started, when that election was annulled in 1993, then we had a series of problems that from there Abacha came in, Sheniko came in, Abacha took over, then Obasanjo was the next person. And in 1999 election, you can tell that we had less issue of rigging, because people then, the former head of state, Abdul Salam, was ready to respect the mandate of the people. So there was no issue of rigging election during Obasanjo's tenure. Then in 2003, when Obasanjo took over, we started having issues of, election was rigged, this place and that place. And then during Yar'Adua's election, Yar'Adua even admitted that yes, the election that brought me in was even rigged. That it was not, that the election, the process was not proper. He admitted it before he died.
What would you say about 2015 election?
2015, that's what I'm going to come to. Now, in 2015, we restored the June 12th that we are talking about, in my view, because that was the beginning of the restoration of democracy in Nigeria. How? Because the president then accepted defeat. So is this current dispensation ready to accept defeat in 2019 in case they are defeated? So if they do that, that will go a long way to show and tell us that yes, democracy has been restored in Nigeria. It is not enough for us to have just this June 12 because we are thinking about what happened in 1993. But going forward, are we ready? And in fact, the person that is suggesting it is going to tell Nigerians by his conduct that yes, I gave you June 12 as a remembrance for the democracy in Nigeria, that if I lose this election, that I'm going to hand over without allowing anybody or without allowing my office to influence me or to rig the election. That is what is June 12. So that is the democracy day we should be looking at, and not the June 12 itself as June 12. We should take it in a wider context. So if we do that, then we will find out. Let's see what will happen in 2019. Let the president go further to assure Nigerians that he is sincere, he is honest, and that he wants to restore that democracy from next year.
All right, now replacing May 29th, like every year celebration that Obasanjo brought in and all that, of course, seeing the handing over power from military regime to democratic dispensation, that is what we've been enjoying for a long time. Now, replacing this with June 12th, is there any legal implication to that?
I don't think Mr. President has said swearing in is going to be on the 12th.
This has been the kind of questions people are asking without answers.
No, let us see, because things has to be done legally. Things has to be legally done, because the implication is if we move from 29th of May
to 12th.
Swearing in to 12th of June, what is the implication? Is it not elongation of office? So we have to look at that. In my view, I think that would be the case. So it is not the public holiday that is the issue, but the timing. Are you going to say that you will not hand over on the 29th of May 2019?
Why is Mr. President, what do you think Mr. President is just silent on that? Because you can't declare the significance of Democracy Day, especially on an elective year, is handover power.
No. Let me disagree with you. See, Democracy Day, even in Lagos State, they've been observing it for some time. Some states in the West, they have been observing it as a public holiday and making it a Democracy Day. That does not mean that they do not hand over on the 29th of May.
Now, if that happens,
so it is. Let us watch and see, because they say when you when you get to the bridge, you now find a way of crossing it. Now, let us see. He has declared that. What is the next step? What is the implication? He hasn't said he will hand over or new government will not come in on the 29th of May. No. That's not the context of that. That is press release or that whatever thing he has signed. He's saying we are going to recognize June 12th as our Democracy Day. Now, it is not for the president, who has the right and power to declare any day as public holidays, to determine whether on the 29th of May each year, during the time of handover, that it will be a public holiday or not, or that is going to be handover. The handover will be on the 12th June. But if handover is going to be on the 12th of June, that will be, except there is an amendment to the existing law, I don't think that will be proper. There will be a legal issue in that respect, which I don't think he has said. So we are just anticipating, that is that likely what is going to happen. But in my view, I think the president has good legal advisors that will tell him that you cannot do that, because if you do so, it means you have extended the tenure of your office, which is by law, not permissible.
Yes, sir. Now, you just mentioned the fact that Mr. President have good legal advisors, and my question, I'm not trying to question whether they are doing their work or not, but I'm saying, if these people have been standing by, do you think they wouldn't have advised Mr. President against disobeying court orders?
What do you want me to tell you? What we say is what we see. We don't say what we do not see. What we say is what is happening. So we don't know what is happening
at the back.
But you know, it becomes very shameful when a legal officer is in a place and things are done wrongly. So the question will be, are you there? Are you not advising this person, or is this person not taking your advice? So that goes back to the issue of appointing Attorney General and Solicitor General, separating the office. You know, so it depends on who is involved, whether the president is listening to the advice of the Attorney General, or whether the Attorney General is advising the president well. That is an issue that we cannot say. But the one we have seen, in our view, there is no reason why a court should make an order. I don't think Attorney General, any Attorney General even, will ever say, don't obey that court order. Even if you say you have appealed against that judgment, there are still procedures. You know, there are still procedures that follows. Except if you meet up such procedures, then I mean, that's what you're expected to do. So I don't think any Attorney General will advise the president or governor in any case not to obey court order. I don't think so.
You know, there's difference between advising, like they always tell us.
Yes.
Now you can take the horse to the river. You can't force the horse to take water. Now, it's possible that you know, the rule of clientele applies. You know, you can only advise your client. Now, the point of advice, it depends now if your client chooses to pick the advice.
Then why are you his lawyer? Why are you still there?
Tracing back to the fact that that their office is a political appointment. That is why we keep hammering on it. It means the judiciary can say we are really, really independent. That's what it means. So long as you put me there, so long as you can take me out at any time, it means I'm obliged to you. I'm obligated to, you know, take your dictates, even if it's against what is right or what is not right.
But let me disagree with you a bit. You see, there is what is called integrity. As a lawyer and as Attorney General, you have a duty to advise. And when your client is not doing what you have advised him, for instance, if you are confronted with a case and you look at it and tell your client, look, I don't think we should go to court because this is not a good case for us. Let us do this. If we go to court, we will not succeed. Then your client say, no, I know. Please go to court. No, is it not my money? If you go to court because he has said so, then he is down the lawyer and you are the client. So if you advise and the person is not taking, what stops you if you are an Attorney General? What stops you not to step aside? Because he takes the blame now. Because people will ask, where is the Attorney General? Because he's the legal officer of the state. Yeah, he's the head legal officer of the state.
Is that possible in Nigeria?
That has to go with integrity and individual differences anyway.
All right, our time is fast spent. Thank you very much, sir, for coming.
Thank you
We've
for having
tried
me.
to look at the bill that have been signed into law by Mr. President, granting financial autonomy to states, houses of assembly, and of course the judiciary, and looking at a single tenure of office for vice president and of course deputy governors that completed the terms or the tenure of a predecessor. Of course, we know that can happen either by death, by resignation, or of course by what other thing can make someone leave an office. You have death,
impeachment,
you have resignation, and of course you have impeachment. So if that happens, it means by the time you complete that office, you have taken the oath of office as the president or the governor. Now you are not stopped after contesting again for coming back again. It means it has to be three terms. So that is what our president have signed as a bill into law, and of course everybody is comfortable with it. Even the reactions that have showed the social media, nobody have come out to say we are not comfortable with this. And of course for the Judiciary and State House of Assembly, we say congratulations to you. We are just keeping our fingers crossed to watch what is going to be the actual effect of what has happened, or the law that the bill has been passed into law. We are going to watch to see if it has really effect on our modus of operandi. Now before then, I want to thank you very much, sir, for coming on the show. And then tomorrow is 12th of June. We slightly touched on that. Let's see what happens tomorrow. And of course, like we said, if the 12th of June is going to replace our handover, we are still yet to see that. But for then, or before then, for now, what we know is that 12th of June will be declared as Democracy Day and a public holiday. Until tomorrow, we'll meet you again, same time. I still remain your host, Uche Uduma, signing out.